opportunities don't just fall in your lap. And sure, you're going to get lucky sometimes. But I have seen firsthand how when you want something, you have to go for it and you have to ask for it. With any opportunity in life, you cannot just wait for it to happen. It's not going to just fall in your lap. You have to make it happen yourself. And if it doesn't work out as planned, hey, at least you tried. What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Beyond the Scale podcast. I'm your host, Katherine. And if you're new to the show, welcome. I have been serving as the host for almost the last 2 years, and it has been such a fun journey to get to know so many of my special guests and learn more about health and wellness through them, but then also to connect with all my listeners. And I love my listeners and I love our clients in the gym across our 250 plus locations within the brand. But today is a bittersweet day, as this is my final episode as the host of the podcast. And again, after almost 2 years of being the host, I have made the decision to step away from this position because I have a few life transitions happening right now, and I'm going to share about some of those today. However, before I do that, what I thought would be fun for this farewell episode would be to share some things that I have learned about myself and some major takeaways that have come with being a host of this podcast for the last 2 years. And so I've put together 7 things that I have learned, 7 big takeaways, and I think that you are going to be able to relate to some of these, and I think you're also going to learn from some of my personal experiences and the takeaways that I had, and hopefully you won't find yourself in one of these situations. So here we go. And before we do these, I want to start off by saying, again, thank you to my audience. Thank you to the Fit Body Bootcamp brand. It has been such a pleasure to work alongside everyone at HQ who is just absolutely phenomenal, but then also to get to know all of the owners on a more personal level and our clients. I mean, we have thousands, 20, 30, 40,000 clients across the brand, and we're growing every single day. And it has been such a pleasure getting to know you guys. And there are great things in store for the podcast. The podcast is not going away. We are just welcoming in some more hosts of the show. It's going to be more than one person. I'm not going to share too much because I'm going to let them have the honor of doing that for their first episode, but you guys are going to be well taken care of, and you are going to get so much knowledge and inspiration from these new hosts of the podcast. So make sure you're still subscribing to our channel, sharing with all of your friends, and don't miss out on our episodes every single week. All right, so for the 7 things, the number 1, the first thing I learned as being a host of the podcast was that opportunities don't just fall in your lap. And sure, you're going to get lucky sometimes. But I have seen firsthand how when you want something, you have to go for it and you have to ask for it. With any opportunity in life, you cannot just wait for it to happen. It's not going to just fall in your lap. You have to make it happen yourself. And if it doesn't work out as planned, hey, at least you tried. So my position as the host of this podcast came from my desire to help Fit Body Bootcamp as a brand grow, and I wanted to help market our company more because I do feel like it is the best fitness franchise in the country and the best franchise model. And so I had been an owner for many years. I had opened 3 locations, and at that time, this was over 2 years ago now as I'm recording this. At the time, I had stepped down from my position as the owner of 2 of my locations. I sold one of my locations to a client. I sold another one of my locations to a facility leader. That was my facility leader. And so I no longer had to be in these locations. And of course, I was still helping during that transition period, but I found myself in a position where I had a little bit more time to give, and I wanted to help on a new level. I wanted to do something different. And also, I kind of wanted to stretch myself a little bit. I wanted to grow in a new way. And so I reached out to Bryce, the CEO, and expressed my interest in helping the brand. And he kind of was like, I'm not sure what we have available for you right now, but let's just keep chatting. And so we would talk, and he would tell me some cool things that they were, thinking about doing at HQ and some ideas they had. And one thing led to the next. I was a guest on his podcast, and he asked me, hey, what about hosting the Beyond the Scale podcast for the franchise to connect with our owners, our clients, and the brand as a whole? And I was like, well, I've never been a podcast host before. It sounds fun, but kind of challenging, being that I know nothing about podcasting, but it worked out. And the point I'm trying to make is that opportunities aren't just handed to you. This was not something that they just went to me and were like, hey, you would be the perfect person for this podcast, and we want to give you this show. And that's not how it happened. And a lot of things in life don't happen like that. You have to get outside your comfort zone, just like we talk about all the time in the gym. And you have to put yourself out there, and it's going to feel a little awkward. And as I mentioned earlier, it might not work out in your favor, but at least you can say you tried, and you're going to learn from that. And so opportunities don't just come to you. You have to create them. And some will come to you. You will be doing something right, and an opportunity will present itself. And that's beautiful when that happens. But sometimes you're going to hit a wall. You're going to hit the end of a road, and you are going to be like, I don't know which way I'm supposed to turn, right or left. I want something different to happen for me, for my life, and I'm not sure what that is. And you might have to create that opportunity for yourself. So that's lesson number 1. All right, lesson number 2. This is a big one. Impostor syndrome. Impostor syndrome is just another way of saying you're too scared to move outside your comfort zone. Again, with that comfort zone. Stop saying that you have imposter syndrome. Something that has happened to me over the last decade, as I have had the great fortune of doing a lot of traveling with my husband and my family, is that I have kind of realized how insignificant I am, meaning that I am one of millions and millions of people. And there are people out there doing crazy, amazing things in the world. And when you see those people, it kind of makes you feel like, whoa, what am I doing? They're doing this. I should be doing great things too. And I often think, I wonder how they had the courage to do that. I don't know why this person's just coming to my mind right now, but Taylor Swift, okay? Taylor Swift, if you're a Swiftie listening to this, Taylor Swift is like at the peak of her career right now. And if you stop to think about how Taylor Swift started, she didn't just start out being the most famous country pop singer from day one. She had to work really hard at it. And I am sure she has had imposter syndrome more times than we can count. And she probably shared about it as well. But if you think about someone like that, here they are changing the game in the music industry, and they are not worried about imposter syndrome. They get up and they get on that stage, and they don't worry about anyone else. And so that is something that I've had to learn as being a host of this podcast, because I'm not going to lie, in the first, few handful of episodes, I worried that what I was saying would sound stupid, or no one would relate to it, or what does my hair look like, or was there something stuck in my teeth, and just all these like very surface level problems that now looking back, I'm like, why did I worry about those things? But imposter syndrome will always be there no matter what. You're going to be thrown into new situations in life all the time. It's never going to end. And there are going to be times where you have to like step up and shine, or get in the back and hide behind other people. And I want you to step up and shine. And in order to do that, you're going to have to swat that imposter syndrome, that feeling, out of the way, and have the courage to take that step forward. And with that comes my number 3. You don't need to be perfect. This goes for everyone. I have been on camera so many times now, and I have learned to do live videos, off the cuff, teleprompter speeches. I've talked on stage, and I had never done any of that prior to this position. This is all new within the last few years for me. And the first few episodes that I recorded for the podcast, I had like word for word a script of exactly what I was going to say. And I still do that sometimes. But I find that today, I don't even need to use that. I just can bullet point all the things I want to talk to you guys about. And same goes for when I have to speak in front of clients at the gym, or when I have an important interview and I'm a guest on someone else's podcast. Everything that you say is not going to be perfect, and your hair is not going to be perfect, and your outfit's not going to be perfect. And you are going to compare yourself to other people, and you're going to have times where you're scared. You're scared to death. But if you're equal parts excited, then I think that you can make it through. And nerves, they're always going to be there. Some of the best public speakers, even like Ed Milet, he shares that he still gets nervous before he goes out on stage. It's normal. I would be worried if you weren't nervous and new exciting situations, but you don't have to be perfect and people don't expect you to be. So go easy on yourself when you mess up and don't take yourself so seriously. Just have a little humor, have a little grace, be humble, and you will be okay. And just know that you're going to do the best that you can. And here's another thing. What I don't want you to do, which I've done so many times. You know, like when you're having a conversation with someone and you're kind of excited about this conversation, you're anticipating what you're going to say. You have this conversation or this meeting or an interview, whatever it is. And afterwards, you replay everything you said back in your head. And you're like, oh, why did I say that? Or why did I do that? Or, oh, I should have never mentioned that. And, oh, I was laughing too much. I was sweating. I wonder if my face was flushed. All of those things. Stop doing it. Again, you don't have to be perfect. And the more attention that you draw to the imperfections, the more awkward it becomes, also for the other person or for your audience. So don't do it, okay? You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be you. All right, number 4. There's a lot of noise, so you need to know when to turn it off or just turn that volume down. I actually read that in a book by Jamie Kern Lima. She was talking about how when she was building her career in the beauty industry, a lot of people were telling her she wasn't good enough, she wasn't worthy, she would never make it in this company that she was starting, It Cosmetics. And she had to turn the volume down. She had to turn it off for a lot of people. And today, I mean, she sold her company for $1 billion with a B, and all of those people came back to her and they were like, oh, I'm sorry for saying that, I was wrong. But the way she was able to make it through is she turned the volume down. She drowned out the noise. And you have to do that sometimes. Because of this position as the podcast host over the last few years, I've been connected to some of the most influential people in this health and wellness space, but I've also been exposed to a lot of noise. And you know how it goes. Once you start following someone or theme or consuming content on one thing, you see more and more of it. And you are voluntarily brainwashing yourselves every day with some of this content that you're consuming. And we buy into that on social media. This is the goal of social media. They want us to just keep scrolling. They want us to be fixated on one thing or one person, and they're going to pull us in, and they want us just to keep going down that dark, long tunnel. The information overload age that we are in is a blessing and a curse, and you need to be very careful with how you use it. And you need to recognize how it affects your mental well-being, because it's a trap. We can all be trapped, and you need to know when to turn the volume down and flip over your phone. All right, number 5, living a life according to your values and not someone else's. This is a big one for me. So when I started my business many years ago, I started chasing the wrong thing. I'm not going to lie. You know, COVID came around and it was a really challenging time for us. However, amongst the challenges, there was an opportunity for us to open up or to take over an existing location. And so I became the owner of 2 locations. And once we got past COVID, we started doing really well. And I had 2 locations. And I thought, well, if I have 2 locations, why don't I have 3 locations? And if I'm going to have 3, why don't I have 4? And kind of had this I wanted to get on this hamster wheel. I never wanted it to end. And something happened. And I've shared about this before, but when my daughter started school, my daughter's almost 6 as I'm recording this. When she was almost 4, she started having a little bit of trouble. We realized that she acted like she had ants in her pants. And teachers were getting a little frustrated with her and didn't have a lot of patience, and she had no patience. And, one thing led to the next, and we realized that after seeing a few doctors that she had ADHD. And it is something that we are going to have to deal with and live with, and we will figure it out as she gets older, and no 2 days are the same, and they're challenging but beautiful, all wrapped up in one. But stay with me here. Back to the point is, I was chasing the wrong thing in my business. I was chasing money. I was chasing more locations, more employees, more and more and more. And as I was chasing that, some things were falling behind in my family. And I realized that I needed to take a step back because I needed to be present for my daughter. And I needed to be able to spend that time with her. And we needed to figure out a plan of action for her education, for her care, how I was going to be the best parent for her, which led me to stepping down from the ownership role in 2 of my locations. And while I was doing that, during that transition period, which took about 6 months, I really had a lot of quiet time to myself and with my husband. And we defined what our core values in life were. And one of our core values was to spend as much time as we could with our family. And time was our currency right now in this stage of life. Until we could feel like we were starting to swim to the top, we needed to slow down. And so we got really, really serious with what we valued most, who we valued in life. So who did we want to spend the majority of our time with? I mean, what friendships weren't working and what relationships, even within our family, were we not going to spend a lot of time investing in? And if you're listening to this, I'm sure you've had situations like this where you've had to take a step back and kind of take like a aerial view of your life and say, what's not working right now? What's not lining up? What actions are not matching up with what I say I value and what's most important in life? And so that is what we had to do. And I am so happy to say that we're in such a great place now with my daughter, and she's getting a little bit older, but things are still challenging. But I'm learning as a mom through therapy, through education for myself on how to be the best parent for her with ADHD. And it's been a beautiful, beautiful struggle. But the moral of the story is for this, 5th thing that I learned is that time is what I value right now. And yes, I value money and hard work, and I want to open up every business of the world. I really do, but I can't right now. And so that is what we had to come to terms with. So if you're listening to this and you've had this transition or you're in a transition phase, I really challenge you to sit down with those you live with and define your core values as a family. Or even if you live alone, define your core values that represent who you are as an individual and write them down, post them on your refrigerator, however you need to see them, and remind yourself that this is what I value right now and my life needs to match up to that. All right, number 6, do what you want, not what makes sense to other people. This is a hard one because many of us have this degree or job that you've worked in for some time. Oftentimes, you feel like if you want to quit, say you're a nurse and you've been a nurse for 10 years, which please, if you're a nurse, don't quit because we need amazing nurses in the world. But let's just say, hypothetically, if you are, and you decide, this just isn't the job for me anymore. I want to start a business, or I want to write a book, or I want to be a public speaker, whatever it is. You have this thought in your head and you want to tell someone about it, or maybe you do. And they're like, whoa, 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 why would you quit your job? You're a nurse. You went to school for this. You have a degree. You're great at it. And it doesn't make sense to them. So you convince yourself that it doesn't make sense for you to do this. You should probably just do what makes sense. That's not always going to happen. What you want to do and what you do end up doing is not going to make sense to other people. Me stepping down from 2 of my locations 2 years ago did not make sense to anyone because we were doing really well. But behind the curtain, people didn't know what was going on in our personal life. And I didn't really want to share that. I'm a very much rainbows and sunshine, smiley face all the time kind of person. And that's actually taken some work to be able to share some of the stuff that goes on at home or behind the curtain with other people. So my point is, what's going on with you and what you want to do is not always going to make sense to other people. And you have to be okay with that because this is your life, not theirs. This is your life, not theirs. And it doesn't matter to anyone else what you do next, except for you. You need to be happy and you need to make the best decision for you. So this is your life, not their life. And you need to make the decision that makes sense for you, not for them. So I want you to think about that. If you are thinking about doing something that's a little wild, if you have a little wild hair, or you have a little bit of you have a scratch and you want to itch it, a little bit deeper, and you want to see where it goes, I challenge you, follow that path, follow that itch, follow that dream. And don't worry about what everyone else thinks. I mean, I know you got to have some support from other people, and I hope that your significant other or your friends or your family, you have someone who does support you and will encourage you. But sometimes you're going to be in a journey alone, and you have to just trust yourself. All right, my last thing, my number 7, which really ties this all together and could put a pretty bow on it, is that community is everything, which is really still the forefront of my personal brand and our franchise model is community. At the end of the day, people are always going to crave connection and a sense of belonging. And I believe that people are craving that more so now than they ever had before because of COVID. We were isolated for some time, and then many of us took jobs from home, whether it was to be with your family or that is just the transition that your employer made for you to have that flexibility. A lot of us are living in isolation, and while we're connected on social media and over email and on our phones, we're not seeing people in person that much. And when we do see people in person, it feels so great. And so at Fit Body Bootcamp, we pride ourselves on building fitness families and communities. And I have really learned more so than I ever had before during the last 2 years as the host of this podcast that community is everything. And if you were listening to this and you don't have a community, you don't have a fitness family or someone that can be a shoulder to lean on or someone to celebrate the great times with you, you need to find that. So with that, those are my 7 key takeaways from being the host of the podcast, and just, also out of response of some of the things that have happened in my life over the last 2 years. But to tie back into number 7, community, what's next for me? Why am I stepping down from this position? And here's why. I did share a little about my daughter, and I also have a son, and my kids are my everything right now. My family is everything. And I have the most supportive husband who I love so much, and he has been on this journey with Fit Body Bootcamp with me. But I'm stepping down from this position because I just moved. I opened my first 3 locations in Virginia. I started with the brand back in 2017, and I sold 2 of my locations. I still have one, which I have a partner with, Kristen, and she's amazing. She's my boots on the ground. She's in the studio every day. But after taking like a 2-year hiatus from being in a studio and being there with clients and serving as the host of this podcast, and then with everything else I've had going on, I realized that community was the thing that I missed the most. And that is where I thrive, is being with other people in a studio, seeing familiar faces every day, encouraging people in person. And so that is the next step for me. So my family and I moved to the state of South Carolina a few months ago as I'm recording this. And I am opening up a new fitness studio, a new Fit Body in Bluffton, South Carolina. So if you're close to Bluffton, or if you ever vacation in Hilton Head, I'd love to have you come by my studio and visit. I'm recording this in September of 2024, and my studio should be open January 2025. So right now we're going through all of the construction phase. Just met with the architect last week, and we did all of our construction drawings. So we have a long road ahead of us, but I'm very, very excited and grateful that I can get back into this again and be there with clients. And I'm so thankful that my life has allowed me to have these beautiful transitions and experiences and opportunities that are new and challenging. And it has brought me back to where I started. And going back to one of the points I made, what you're doing doesn't have to make sense to other people. Several people that I've talked to over the last few years, I kind of feel like they are wondering what I'm doing. Like, why am I opening up another studio when I stepped away from 2 of them? My life could be easier if I didn't do that. I don't want easy. If you guys have gotten to know me over the last 2 years, you know that I don't take the easy road ever. And I'm ready for this challenge again. I am so pumped for this challenge. And not only am I opening up another studio down here, but I am also recruiting people to open Fit Body Bootcamp locations within the entire state of South Carolina alongside my partner, Joey. So very busy, but very excited for all of these great things. And again, I have enjoyed being the host of the podcast. It's been such a great opportunity. I love all of my listeners, and I hope that I can stay connected to all of you guys. And I am excited about the future of this podcast and the great things to come. So with that, please make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, check us out on Apple Podcasts, and share this episode with all of your friends. Sending off with love. Until next time. Thanks so much.